All right, welcome everybody to the Bobby Dsouza show. My name is Bobby Dsouza. I'm the author of the book Fallen to Rise. And today it is such a joy and privilege to have Professor Atul Khosla on the show. All right.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Atul. And before we start, I would just like to give you a little introduction of Atul. Now, somebody who does not need much of an introduction, Professor Atul Khosla is the founder, trustee, and vice-chancellor at Shoolini University, which is nested in the hills of Solan, Himachal Pradesh. He's been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. He's founded and led multiple startups. He also started the Everest Group business in India and Asia in 2003, 2006. We will hear more from him because he can do more justice to whatever I'm saying. But the best thing that I've discovered about Atul is he's charismatic, he's passionate, and he's done such amazing work. So Atul, welcome once again. It is such a delight.
Thank you, Bobby, and it's such an honor to be in your show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Atul. So Atul, as we begin, let us start by asking you one question: that how did this adventurous journey start? How did you just begin?
So I'm going to go back probably 40 years, Bobby. My parents are educationists, and my grandparents were educationists too. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, I've got the blood of an educationist.
Wonderful.
And as I was growing up, as I was in school, being a scientist was what I really wanted to be. So I remember reading stories about Newton and Einstein and Hargobind Khurana and C.V. Raman, Chandrasekhar, and all the biggies, Ramanujan. And I always had that I wanted to be in education.
That's right.
I was ending up at IIT where I did my undergrad. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, IIT was not a place that I blossomed into a researcher. I moved into becoming a capitalist from a socialist. Mm-hmm. And here I was doing an MBA in Bombay and joining a consulting firm called McKinsey. But mind you, when I was interviewing for McKinsey, I still had this in my mind that I would like to be an economist one day and do a PhD in economics from the Chicago school.
Wow.
So getting into education was always in my heart. Mm-hmm. And then I was very lucky in the early 2000s. I ended up doing a very interesting and a high-profile piece of work for the Prime Minister of the country, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. We were looking at how to take Indian technology education to the next level. And that's when we conceptualized McKinsey and the government of India, how to scale up the IITs. And now you've seen, from 5 IITs, there are, I think, 25 plus. So all that work was done by my team. So when Shoolini was founded by my dad, and he did a phenomenal job in setting it up, and he invited me to join Shoolini, I think I just blinked an eyelid and said, yes, that's what I want to do, because that's what I always wanted to do, which was to give back to the students. So whatever little I've done in life, Bobby, it's because I got great education. And I strongly believe that if you can give great education to our students, they will do exceptionally well. And that's my passion. And that's why I joined Shoolini, and I continue to build my life around this passion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that you mentioned was that, you already had a role model of education, which was always there, while you grew up, and somehow that inspired you. And today, I'm so privileged that I have met you personally. We've done some work together, and just to see the joy of things that happens at Shoolini consistently is amazing. Now, one question that I had for you is, during this times of uncertainty, lockdowns, and questions that we have, every industry has been hit, specifically even the education sector. So how do you basically lead, a university in times of this chaos, in times of lockdown, where students are all online, and, campuses are basically meant for, physical presence. So how do you manage this uncertainty, and how do you help your team lead in times of questions like these?
I think 3 answers over here, Bobby. First, I'm trained as a consultant, where we try to take uncertainty and unstructured work and provide some structure to it. So that's one. So, that's what we do all our lives as management consultants. That's what McKinsey taught me.
That's right.
So uncertainty is not something that bothers me, I would say. I think the second thing is, we're all crystal gazers. We're all trying to sort of see into the future.
Hmm.
And I've been talking about this disruption for the last 5 years. I've been talking about online. I've been talking about a new way of university education happening because of changes in technology. So I
Hmm.
have to tell you that when COVID happened, we were able to transform into an online platform within 7 days,
Hmm.
largely because we've been working on this for the last 5 years.
Yes.
So it was nothing new for us. It was something that we had done in the past. So I'm very excited about the way the world is going because it brings in the best of both worlds. Like you said, the physical environment of learning from each other, which is peer learning, but
Hmm.
also the learning, Bobby, come over to campus. And you always had constraints because you had to travel all the way from Bombay. But today I can get you within a minute, right? You can speak to the students
Hmm.
because you're all connected over the internet, over the wire. So it
Hmm.
brings in what I call a democratization of education. So
Hmm.
we've had 5 Nobel Prize winners speak to our students. We've had celebrities like Yuvraj Singh and Harbhajan Singh and Anupam Kher and Dia Mirza, Kiran Bedi, Kiran Kher, you name it, speak to our students. We've
Hmm.
had politicians speak to our students. We've had corporate CEOs speak to our students. This just wouldn't have been possible in the
Yes.
old world, Bobby. And
Yes.
I see this whole world of hybrid, online and offline together, coming together. So the world of education is disrupting, just like it's happened in other parts of the world, in other
Yes.
parts of other businesses. So I'm very excited. I think students are getting new opportunities. Students can learn amazing things with the use of technology. And
Hmm.
it's going to change the way we all behave. It's going to make education accessible to the
Hmm.
least common denominator, which means I could be the child of a laborer sitting in Arki, which is a small town in Himachal, and I could
Hmm.
still dream to be a Nobel Prize winner, which I couldn't
Wow.
even 2 years back. So that's the
Wonderful.
power of technology.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. And basically, it brings hope and it removes that special access that only few get, because there is an
Yeah.
online world
You know,
and people.
I'm gonna joke over here, Bobby, and I've always had this tension with the so-called English-speaking Boston Brahmin, kids from the so-called public schools of India, the Doones and the Srirams and the modern schools or the Cathedral of Bombay, and you have to see the movie Hindi medium for that. So there's a beautiful movie Hindi medium where they actually bring this issue up, and I actually cried after seeing this movie. There's another beautiful movie called Skater Girl, which I'll request and encourage all of you to actually watch. So it's all about this two parts of India, two parts of the world, the haves and the have-nots. And
Hmm.
we've always believed that the have-nots can't succeed. And we've always believed that, these stiff English speaking kids are the ones who are going to succeed. And let me tell you now, with this digital revolution, it's the students from the smaller towns who are going to kick the shit out of these guys who have privileged backgrounds and go to these privileged schools. And
Hmm.
that's the exciting part of the country. That's the exciting part where the belly of the country will succeed, not just the creamy layer, as I call it. It's the Goldies who study in the primary school next to Shoolini, for example, who will now have the opportunity to learn in the best and become Nobel Prize winners, IS officers, corporate CEOs, which they couldn't even dream of earlier. And
Hmm.
that's the revolution that's going to come in, Bobby. Mind you, I think it's also going to bring in some social unrest, but that's okay. That's a price we have to
Hmm.
pay for these kids who are underprivileged or lesser privileged to step up. So I tell this to my son. I said, gone are the days where you were privileged. Now you will have to fight with the guys who have risen from the dust, who have fought in the streets, because these are the kids who are street fighters, know how
Hmm.
to fight it harder than you, and they are the ones who are now going to compete with you. So you
Hmm.
better learn the tricks of the trade that they know, because you don't know how to fight the way they do.
Hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. While you were speaking, I saw a lot of passion and a lot of excitement in you, and also a lot of vision for inspiring and empowering India. So, where does it all come from?
Bobby, it comes from three places, I would say. First, my background.
Hmm.
So, my parents, my grandparents have been socialists. So, I
Hmm.
grew up in an environment where they were helping the poor, they're helping the lesser privileged, the underprivileged. And especially my mother, who has a huge empathy towards I would say the lesser privileged.
Mm.
So somewhere it's in my genetic code, a desire to help what I call the lesser privileged of the
Mm.
country or the world. I think the second comes from, a lot of reading that I had as I was growing up. I would read. Uh, I would read about Karl Marx. I would read about Lenin. I would read about Rabindranath Tagore. I would read about our freedom movement, Jawaharlal Nehru, Gandhi. I've been hugely influenced by some of these thinkers. And I think, again, a desire to change the destiny of India is something that's, I think, very, very deep inside me.
Correct,
I
correct.
think the third is also my own experience, which is growing up in a very small town, which used to be a population of 15,000. And
Mm.
I never spoke English at home. So when I went to IIT Kanpur, I couldn't speak a word of English. And when I joined McKinsey, which was and continues to be a very stiff company when it comes to style, I had a huge challenge because all
Mm.
my peers came from backgrounds where, in the classical context, they were speaking English or they had that so-called Western style, and
Mm.
I didn't have that. So I had to really learn from the start. I had to learn from pretty much 101 on how to eat with a fork and a knife, how to dress with a tie and a suit, how to brush my shoes, polish my shoes, how to speak. I remember I bought a camera and I learned how to speak by speaking to a camera every day for 6 months,
Wow.
for 6 years. Sorry, for 6 years at a stretch, I would speak to a camera, and I learned it the hard way. So, and I had trouble because my feedback was not up to the mark. My first 3 4 years at McKinsey were very very tough, Bobby.
Mm.
So I empathize with students who come from different background. And,
Yes.
and I think it's not just about, there's always a difference. When I see these so-called highly evolved Indian students go to, let's say, the United States, they also fail because they don't know the culture of the US.
Yes.
So I think it's a journey that all of us have to take, while
Yes.
students from smaller towns of India have to learn how to become world beaters in a large Indian metro, then move beyond that to go
Mm.
to New York or wherever else in the world.
Mm.
The journey has to be there, and it's vice versa. Students from America, if they want to succeed in India, have to learn the
Mm.
Indian way. So I think it's a cultural transition, and my belief is that if the belly of India doesn't succeed, if the
Mm.
majority of India that lives in smaller towns doesn't succeed in the classical sense, and the classical sense is working in the best jobs, and these best jobs are either in the IAS, the government of India, MNCs, or being, uh, you know, founders of startups,
Mm.
then the challenge is there.
Yes.
And we need to overcome this challenge by creating great educational institutions. And that's the role that Shoolini is trying to play.
Mm. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, one question I had for you was, as leaders, when we're trying to lead other people, we also go through our own times of questions, times when we might feel disillusionized, confused, a little lost. How do you handle your own inner battle? Because every morning you have to rise up and you have to show up, right? No matter what happens. So, how do you, as a leader, handle your own inner battle? Any suggestions that you would like to give to other leaders around, who might be having questions and, don't know how to handle the uncertainty?
So different people have different styles, Bobby. A few things which I do. First of all, I'm a die-hard optimist. I never think negative things. If I have a negative thought, I just close it. So I have the ability to block negative thoughts in my
Wow.
mind.
Mm.
So 90% of the time I succeed. So I don't go home with stress. I don't go home thinking negative things. I just shut that part of my brain, and I can do that.
Wow.
Second, I think I'm also a very emotional person, Bobby.
Mm.
So sometimes I engage with people. I pass my stress to others. So
Mm.
I'm like a kid outside a candy store. So I don't keep that negativity inside me or that stress inside me. So I'll call my team and I'll share my views. In
Mm.
fact, in my previous job, I was called a popcorn machine because I would keep on coming with ideas like a popcorn machine, pop, pop, pop. So, dreaming, not thinking negative, having lots and lots of discussions and deliberations with your team,
Yes.
and of late, meditation. I think these are things that
Mm.
keep me excited. Physical work, exercises, playing a sport, following a passion, a hobby also
Mm.
helps. So I would say, apart from your passion for work, you also need to have a passion for something else. And that
Yes.
passion cannot be money, Bobby. The passion cannot be money. You have to ask the purpose of your life. You have to
Yes.
ask, why do you live?
Mm.
For me, my why is about giving back to the students of India and building a university that's
Mm.
great, that gives back to the community. It's not about money. It's not about building
Mm.
Shoolini into a great university, because that's an outcome of the
Mm.
purpose. So I think finding that purpose becomes very, very important. And I think as a
Yes.
leader, all of us should determine what that purpose is. So I left Oliver Wyman also because I thought and told myself I cannot make rich people richer anymore.
Mm.
And coming to education was a great way for me to find my purpose. So
Yes.
if there's anyone who's in the corporate world listening to me, I would say, find your purpose. If you
Yes.
have enough money for you to survive, just dive and do what you feel like doing.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Don't
Wonderful.
run after gold all your life.
That's right. That's right. When we find our why, there is passion, excitement. Automatically, it comes, and we start enjoying what we're doing, and we can clearly see.
Absolutely.
We clearly start seeing, with what you're doing. The
And I
last
think the
question.
last thought, yeah, and the last thought, Bobby, would be find a thought partner. It could
Hmm.
be anyone, it could be your father, it could be your wife. You need someone that you could share with, share
Hmm.
your anxieties, share your question marks. So I think finding that thought partner becomes very, very important in the
Hmm.
process.
Thought partner, yes, and who you engage with, the circle of people you engage with, at least some people whom you can really trust, you can open up. I think it really, really helps. and
That's
and
right.
I
That's
so true. One last question for you before we end was, there are so many educational universities, who have a lot of questions, basically because the whole chaos of COVID-19 has hit so much people around. What is your suggestion or advice to the education industry right now in regards to how should they lead? What should they do? Because, people aren't coming to the campus. They're all going to be online. When it's going to open up? These are big questions that they have. So any suggestions that you would have for the education sector in India and global?
three things, Bobby. First, disruption is a way of life.
Mm.
So we all need to learn to live in this world of disruption and uncertainty. If
Yes.
someone would ask me how would 10 years down look like for education, I would say I don't know.
Mm.
So an analogy that I give is, it's like, the steam engine of the 18th century. When the steam engine was discovered, they started putting railroads everywhere. The
Yes.
speed of the rail engine, the speed of the steam engine, the first steam engine was 6 miles an hour,
Mm.
compared to the 4 miles an hour of the horse carriage. And the steam engine was supposed to be path breaking, disruptive.
Mm.
But today we know the steam engine has moved on to become an electricity based locomotive,
Yes.
which in Japan is running at 500 miles an hour or 400 miles an hour. So,
Yes.
what's going to happen in the next 20 years, we don't know. I think it's going to be fundamentally different. There are going to be new devices. You can't have a boring computer as a device when you're spending 8 hours in front of it. There's going to be a new sound system. You can't have this boring mic that you and I have that we use today. It's good. Some technology will come in. Someone will come up with better ways to engage in education. How will it be? I don't know. So let's wait, let's evolve, and let's adapt. So that's the first thing. So
Yes.
learn to live with disruption. I
Mm.
think the second thing in the near term is to be uh, figuring out what you believe is the right answer. And my right answer is going to be that the world is going to be disruptive, the world is going to be hybrid. And it's not just about online versus offline. I think it's also about fundamental theses about education are going to get questioned. For example, why should there be a 4-year degree? Why not
Mm.
2 years? Why not 6 years? Why not 1 year? I think the new education policy is already talking about multiple entry and exit points. I don't know how much you know about the new education policy, but it's talking about flexibility, it's talking about technology, it's talking about credit banks, research. So all of that is going to come into education.
Mm.
So figure out what you think is going to be the future of education and start investing in it. I would say that's my second thought. So the first is learn to be in an unstructured environment. Second is you find what you think is going to be the near term end state and start working towards it. And I think the third is going to be invest in intangibles. A classical university would invest in what I call a big fat university environment. So they're very proud. Oh, we've got 1,000 acres of land. You go to the websites of most universities, they'll be very proudly show these so-called beautiful buildings, huge infrastructure. In old days, they were called Ivy Leagues because they had Ivy on their walls. So that's how the Ivy Leagues came into play. And then they created networks. Buildings and tangible assets will not be that important going forward. It's going to be intangible assets. Your knowledge, the quality of your faculty, the training you can give to students, the culture that you build inside the university, because students will not come to you just for learning and education anymore that you can get from an online platform. They will come for an experience. So we all have to be ready to give that experience to the students which they seek, like you rightly said, peer-to-peer learning.
Yes.
What is the environment we have to create for that particular experience? And I think if we can do these three things, we're all set for the future. I again repeat, learn to live in a complex and unstructured world, an uncertain world. Number two, we all need to invest in the intangibles, which I said. And the third thing would be to make sure that we figure out what we think is strategically the near-term and long-term end state and invest towards that. So these will be the three suggestions I'll have for educationists. Keep talking amongst each other, figure out what's happening. No one knows what the end state is. So we will have to determine where and how to invest.
Wonderful, wonderful. Atul, thank you so much for the wonderful insights that you shared. What we'll also do is we'll put a link. Anybody wants to know more about Shoolini University, the links will be mentioned below. But Atul, thank you so much for your valuable time. This is definitely good insight for the education sector, but for any leader across the world. So I appreciate your time.
I think the last thought before I say goodbye to you, Bobby, would be there was a terminology I grew up with, which was think outside the box.
Yes.
And I'm going to say, don't think outside the box. Break the box. It's time for us to do absolutely new things. Take the risk. Do something that is truly, truly disruptive, of course, in the right direction, with the right set of values. And if you're able to do that, continue with the tenacity, with what you think is the right thing to do, and you will end up with a gold mine. You'll end up by solving the purpose that you want to be in education or any other business environment that you're in. So break the box and change the world, because people who believe and dream that they can change the world and are crazy enough to do that are the ones who change the world, Bobby.
That's right.
That's what Steve
Absolutely.
said. And it's our opportunity to change the world. So let's make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Atul. Thank you so much for the wonderful insight. I'm inspired and I'm ready to go and do something amazing. Thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you back on campus, Bobby. I think
Absolutely.
very soon.
Absolutely.
Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Atul.
Bye-bye.